Hi, my name is Heather.
My name is Tianna.
My name is Mark.
And welcome, fellow scholars, to Group 11's presentation on the research from the report entitled Undermining Children's Intrinsic Interest with Extrinsic Reward, a Test of the Overjustification Hypothesis. Before we dive into this fascinating research, let us unpack what this overjustification hypothesis is. It simply suggests that if an individual has a natural or intrinsic interest in doing something, that natural interest may become lessened when a reward is offered in exchange for completing the activity. Can you think of an example from your own life when you started out loving to do something and then were offered a reward for doing that activity? Did your passion for the activity continue even after there was no reward to be had? As we proceed, keep in mind this hypothesis as the research seeks to gain clarity concerning this idea with the preschool population in mind. So, what do we want to know? Our broad question here is, do rewards have an effect on a child's interest in learning activities? Specific to this study, if children with an initial interest to draw are given a reward for drawing, will there be an effect on that intrinsic interest subsequently, even after there's no reward offered? The researchers' hypothesis would say, yes, offering a reward for drawing will have an effect upon the intrinsic interest of that child. Alternatively, we would say, no, offering a reward for drawing will not have an effect upon the intrinsic interest.
Now for the methods portion, the participants were 51 preschoolers aged 40 to 64 months. Originally, 12 out of 45 girls and 2 out of 24 boys said no. The field experiment was an observational study where the kids were placed in front of a one-way mirror. The independent variable was a treatment condition where there were three, one being the expected reward condition, where participants agreed to engage in the activity knowing they would receive a reward. Two, being unexpected reward condition, where participants agreed to engage in the activity not knowing about the reward and still receiving one. And three, no reward condition, where participants agreed to engage in the activity but did not know about the reward and yet still did not receive one as well. The dependent variable was the level of subsequent intrinsic interest. The location was at Being University in Stanford, Being Nursery at Stanford University, and the race ethnicity was the white middle class kids. Next slide. In the baseline data, it was recorded 2 weeks prior to the experimental procedure. White pieces of paper and magic marker were used for the targeted activity. If the children grabbed the marker, then they were recorded as interested, whereas the children who did not grab the marker, they were recorded as not interested. In the experimental study, it was done to meet 3 criteria. For it to be aesthetically pleasing to the children's eyes, 2, the similar activities surrounded so that it doesn't seem out of place, and 3, having the activity accessible towards the children. Now, the experimental study, there's 2 experimenters. 2 people conducted the experimental session where the children were approached by one experimenter, which were asked if they would like to come to the surprise room. And the kids that were asked, those who said no, were excluded, and kids who said yes were then brought to the room. Yeah, that's good. Next slide.
So after this data was recorded and the experimental part was done, the children were sent back to their classrooms, and the researchers stood behind a one-way mirror and watched the children to see who would draw and who wouldn't draw. And the results showed that children in the expected reward condition showed less subsequent intrinsic interest in drawing. The unexpected reward group and the no reward group showed no change to their intrinsic interest in drawing. They still drew, even though no reward was being offered.
I focused on the inference. which include alternative results, limitations, and a follow-up experiment. In the alternative results, kids in the expected condition who showed less intrinsic interest in the activity supported the researchers' hypothesis. There were many different limitations in this study. The limitations in the study was it was a small sample size. They excluded ethnic children, and male only interacted with children participants, and there was only one activity in the surprise room. If there was going to be a follow-up experiment, my group and I decided on a few different variables we would add. Those variables would be to represent multiple ethnic race, to give us a bigger population, have a wide variety of activities in the surprise room, and have male and female experimenters interact with the children to make them more comfortable with coming to the surprise room. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed listening to our presentation.
Good night.
Thank you.